In this scenario, a client meets a hospital social worker for the second time in the hospital as a follow-up visit. The client was released from the hospital 1 week ago after being admitted for injuries caused as a result of intimate partner violence at the hands of her husband, who she's been married to for over 15 years. They have 3 children. The abuse has been ongoing for many years and is becoming increasingly more violent and lethal. Vanessa, hi. It's nice to see you again.
It's good to see you.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm doing okay. Things have been settling down a bit, I think.
Yeah, the last time we saw, things were pretty chaotic and hectic when you were being released from the discharged from the hospital about a week ago.
Yeah.
How's your injury? How's your arm?
It's pretty pain. Had a lot of pain in it. I've been kind of trying not to take too much pain medication, and just kind of trying to keep busy and focus on things that are happening. I've been busy with my church duties and with my kids, and
So you've been trying to stay busy.
yeah. It's been hard to think about myself when I have so many other things that are way more important than me to deal with.
Yeah. How are your kids doing?
They're doing okay. The little ones were pretty kind of stressed out when I first got home, and they were a little unsure of themselves and what was going to happen. But the older kids have helped out quite a bit, so I think they're pulling together.
Yeah. I imagine that there's a period of readjustment and healing and sadness, or as in it sounds like also just trying to get things done. And
Yeah, my motto is just to keep moving. Moving as fast as I can, trying to keep the house clean and be good at, with my duties with my church, and trying to keep the kids focused on their activities and not to be too focused on what's happening in me and Paul's life, because, there's nothing they can do about that.
So you're taking care of a lot of people, your community, your kids, all the while trying to take care of yourself. That's a lot.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you showing up today, given how much you have on your plate and how much you have going on. Yeah. Well, last time that we met, you had talked about how important it is for you to do what you can to keep your kids and yourself safe. And I was wondering if you'd be interested in talking a little bit more about that today, or perhaps if there's something else that you would rather talk about.
No, I made time today to talk about this. I think it's really important to try to figure something out. Things got very out of hand there. And so I'm looking forward to thinking about what things I can do.
So you were scared. It sounds like you were scared.
It was terrifying. Police were called. We ended up having to call the police, and Paul was arrested and spent some time in jail. I had child welfare folks crawling all over my house, and my mom was upset, and neighbors were all being nosy and gossiping, and it was just very scary.
So a lot of things were turned upside down, and when you say it was scary, I hear you saying on some level it was scary for you and your safety, but it also sounds like it was scary because all these other variables or elements were put in motion that were disruptive.
Right. We had people coming to the house, calling and, checking in, are you okay? Or can you get a restraining order? And my mom was trying to get me to move in with her, and it's just too many cooks in the kitchen.
So a lot of people have some ideas about what you should be doing. And
So I'm just really, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to get a restraining order. I'm not going to call the police. He knows where I live, and.
So say more about that. Say more about why you don't want to call the police, or you don't want to get a restraining order.
They were throwing him on the ground.
Oh.
They were holding his arms behind his back, and they had their guns, and you know, that kind of, you never know what the police are going to do to a black man. You never know whether he's going to make it to the jail safely. So I was terrified for him. And then the next day, you know, child welfare call in the house.
It sounds like that was a very scary experience and moment for you.
Yeah, because I'm a good mom.
And given that experience, it sounds like you're maybe not as inclined to think about calling the police again.
Yeah, no. I've told my mom that that's a last resort, and that I'm going to be meeting with some folks and thinking about other options.
And that's what you'd like to talk about today, is
Yeah.
alternatives to
Yes.
calling the police.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, what have you thought about so far? What other ideas do you have about what you might do in a serious moment where you're scared for your well-being and that of your kids?
I think I'm most afraid, you know, that something might happen that will be really crazy and really out of control. And so I've been thinking about what kinds of things I could do if things are crazy and out of control. And I've just thought about maybe talking to somebody, or talking to my minister about it. It came to my mind because he's somebody who we've talked to before.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your minister, someone that you're thinking about talking to a little bit about what's going on in your relationship. What are your thoughts? What would you say to your minister? What would you like to tell your minister?
Well, I'm really interested in telling him more of the truth of what's happening in my relationship. He doesn't know about. He has no idea that Paul has threatened to kill me, and that he's threatened to kill himself and the children. He knows we've had some marital problems, some financial problems. He knows that Paul's had some drinking problems. So there's some of that, but he doesn't know about him threatening to kill us, or that he's been hitting me, or his rages. So I feel like that it's time to tell tell him some of that stuff.
You feel like you've been keeping some significant information from your.
Yeah.
What would be some reasons why you would tell him these things? What might be some advantages or reasons to do that?
He's been helpful before. He's really helped us a lot. We've had counseling with him over the last 5 years numerous times, and he's been very helpful.
So it's someone that you trust, someone that you have a
Yes.
relationship with, and he's been helpful. In what ways has he been helpful?
You know, I think Paul respects him as a man, and I think he cares about Paul. So he's not, my mom and my dad and my friends, they're really bordering on hating Paul, and I don't feel like they have any objectivity when it comes to working with him. But my pastor has some objectivity, and I think he cares about Paul.
It sounds like your pastor is able to see him as a whole, complicated human being in the same ways that you do, perhaps.
Yes.
That there's this side of him that's scary and that you don't like, and then there's this other aspect of him that you really do appreciate, and you feel like your pastor would likely be able to do that as well. What would be another reason to talk to your pastor, in addition to this being someone you trust and that Paul might listen to? Might be another advantage?
Well, I don't think that he's going to likely go storming into, our pastor's house.
Paul
That
won't.
Paul won't. He's gonna. He comes banging at my mom's door, and he goes, storming over to my girlfriend's house. But he's not likely to do that. Yeah, I don't think he will.
So your pastor's home actually might be a physically safe place for you all to go,
Right.
should things
To
get
cool off, because things got so out of control and crazy, and that's not going to happen again.
So you've said that a few times now, that things got so out of control and crazy. Tell me a little bit more about what that was.
Yeah. My eldest son got involved. My arm was harmed. Things were broken. He threatened to kill me, and he threatened to kill all of us. And I had to call the police, and I had to, have people coming into my house, tromping through my house, grabbing Paul, hurting him. You know, he called me from jail and, how can you do this? You know, what have you done? You know, I felt like, what have I done? How can I do this?
Right. So not only was it so scary in the heat of the moment where you feared for your life and the life of your children, but afterwards it was scary as well because of all the things that happened.
All that fallout.
Yeah. So going to your pastors, talking to your pastor, possibly seeing if his house might be a place that you could run to temporarily might be something to explore, and those are advantages. Are there any disadvantages? Like, what would be some possible disadvantages to talking to your pastor about what's been going on in your relationship?
That Paul will know. You know, if he finds out that I've talked to our minister about this, you know, I have no doubt how angry he will be.
So this could really be a trigger, a significant trigger for
Yes,
for
if he finds out about it.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of a difficult situation, yeah, as you think about this particular part of a safety plan. On the one hand, there's potentially some real advantages and positives to speaking to your minister, and at the same time, there's this possible significant risk. When you think about, you know, the pros and the cons in this situation, what do you make of that? Where do you go with that?
It's a risk I'm willing to take. You know, I have thought about this, and it was, you know, things got so out of control, and I feel like it's time to do something different and to think about how we're going to do this differently.
You're really concerned.
Yes.
A part of you is really worried about the next time.
Yeah.
And you appreciate that there are some risks involved in some of the safety planning, and you also feel like it's a risk that you're willing to take given what is at stake. And really, it sounds like you feel like your life and your children's lives may be at stake.
Yes. You know, I think that things can't continue the way that they are. I have to figure out something that's going to work for me and for my kids and for Paul.
Would it be all right with you if I offered just a suggestion or a thought, something to think about in terms of kids and safety planning? This is something that I know other moms in in situations similar to yours have done, and that is sit down and have a conversation with their kids about identifying a safe person to either call or run to in the moment when things are, if things get really crazy and out of hand.
Right.
And I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts are about doing that with your kids.
Well, I think my oldest son, that would be a really helpful thing for him because he wants to know what he can do. He wants to do something. He's always jumping in. That's how I got hurt in the first place, is he was jumping in. So helping him identify something that he can do that will keep us safe and to keep him safe would be a great idea.
Yeah, so you see this perhaps as a way of kind of not pulling him out of a violent situation, but having him turn away from a violent situation as opposed to turn into it, which is what he's done.
Yeah. He's becoming a man now too. He needs to have an option of what he can do to keep his family safe.
Yeah. And as he's becoming a man and thinking about how to protect you, you're also really concerned about protecting him and keeping him safe. And I've heard you identify a few things that you're thinking about doing or would like to do, and things that you feel like you actually do have control over. Last time we talked, you were very clear about the fact that you can't control Paul when he's in his fury and his rage and being violent. And what I've heard you very clearly say that you want is to figure out what you can control. You can't control him, but there are some things you have control over. And specifically for you, that is maybe talking to possibly a safe person, your minister, and having that conversation to see if that might be a safe person and place to go to. And then the other piece is maybe having a conversation with your oldest child, at least, about who to call in the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm confident, Vanessa, that you will be able to put a plan together that will work for you and your family. And I'm here to support you in any way that I can. And if it's at all helpful, I'd be happy to follow up with you in a few days and see if you feel the need to talk about it some more.
Thank you. I'd appreciate that.
Yeah. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.